Welcome to Shameless. Here we explore the transformative power of courage and action.
So, as it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, we wanted to dedicate today's discussion an incredibly important topic. This is typically overlooked, and the topic of men's mental health is especially important and crucial within society. And typically, I struggle at times to be able to express myself, and a large part of that has to do with society's expectations and traditional norms around how we look at masculinity, and at times that hinders our ability to be able to talk, to be able to break barriers, and to be able to express ourselves. So today's discussion not only looks to break those barriers down, looks to challenge stigmas and to provide valuable insight and support. Thank you so much for joining, and enjoy the episode.
So Keeper, I've got a question at this point. So when that news broke, you say it was like an earthquake, and not one, but it was what your mom said and then what your sister said, right?
In a 10-minute span, all within 10 minutes.
And so, and the part which really got to you was what your sister said. And you said those coulda, shoulda moments. What is the biggest level of emotion that you felt in that moment?
There's betrayal, devastating betrayal. Me and my siblings were all 8 years apart. My mother had her first when she was 17 and had all 8 by the time she was 24. And when you have children, you have this feeling that I will protect you no matter what. Well, once the molestations of my sister started happening, all of that was tossed out the window. So the emotional thing that was the greatest was the betrayal from the most powerful people in our world, probably not on the planet, but the most powerful people in our world, and that is our parents. They're always the most powerful people in a child's world because they dictate so much of what you're going to do and not going to do and how you evolve as a person. So there's this betrayal by my parents, and then there's the betrayal by my sister saying we can't talk about it simply because of our gender is the same as the person who was molesting them and raping them and doing this stuff. So we were cast aside. And so there's also the guilt of not knowing, but that's part of the program. We're not supposed to know. And then there's the shame of how could you not know? So there's so much that is suffocating for a brother, and yet we need to be able to somehow express what we're going through, but there are no outlets for us. So there's the guilt, there's the shame, and then there's the betrayal.
Typically in a conversation like that, the focal point obviously is for the victim, but what we don't talk about are those people supporting the people who are in those situations. Now, how do you feel all shame, guilt, betrayal, and then still be able to show up in order to be supportive across or through a process? Or do you actually then depart and withdraw because yourself, you're not in a position to be able to, let alone understand what's going on, let alone to be able to support? So how do you balance, and how did you work through that?
Ziggy, at the time, I'm 16 years old, and we're talking about a conversation being had with 8 children. When adults hear that kind of information, they can't handle it. How are 8 kids supposed to handle it? And we're under contract, so we had contractual obligations, and so we had to still try to go forward because that was our only means of support in eating. The challenge became for me is, how do I pull myself out of this? How do I figure out how to go forward? Because everything now, my world has just been flipped upside down. When it comes to child sexual abuse, I understand both sides of the coin. Unfortunately, I understand the damage side because I was sexually abused by my babysitter 6 years before my sisters, almost daily for 6 months. And I also understand the collateral damage side, which is the brother and trying to not only find support for your sisters, but in the immediate aftermath, you have to find support for yourself, because how can I support my sisters if I can't take care of me? So at this point, all 7 of my siblings need something. We each need something from each other, and yet we also need each of us to step forward in our own space so that we can somehow be effective in helping us as individuals grow. I think one of the things that separates leaders from those people who aren't is it was incumbent upon me that I understood the reality of the situation. And understanding the reality of the situation, which was I have got to focus on me first and then try to patch with my sisters. Because what leaders do, leaders are scared like everybody else. I think oftentimes people don't think leaders are not scared. We are deadly scared, just like everyone else. But what leaders do, leaders step into the space and own it and do something about it, as opposed to those people who are in the space and step backward and get absorbed in the emotional challenges of what happens. There's a book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That is what leadership is about. You know you're in an untenable situation. You know you're in an emotional, free-falling situation. But you have to somehow figure out a way to arrest it, to slow it down, to stop it.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share as we embark on our mission to impact 1 million African lives by 2026.
This podcast is brought to you by Transformation Leader. You can follow us at www.t4leader.com.